This video is brought to you by Banks. Not long ago, in my Oppo Find N5 episode, I called that phone the benchmark, the device every regular phone and every foldable for that matter should rise up and try to beat. It's super thin, lasts for days on a single charge, it has a massive canvas and a camera I can only dream of. Sure, it comes with a few compromises, but none worth complaining about. That being said, as a longtime One UI fan, I was quietly hoping Samsung would re-enter the foldable ring with something serious this time. Well, they did. And I have some thoughts. As usual, I went for the Model T, the black version, because if there's one thing Samsung knows how to pull off, it's making their devices look clean and stealthy. Mine is the 512GB model, by the way, and I had no choice but to trade in a phone to get it, because at $2,200 for the 512GB version, this thing is far from a casual purchase. It's in fact nuts, because I can buy a full-blown M4 MacBook Pro with 1TB of storage and still have spare change left for accessories. And when the unboxing experience on the Z Fold 7 felt like opening a placeholder rather than a premium device, the only thing left for me was to hope the rest of this device would justify the price tag. I mean, there should be no room for excuses, right? By the way, if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe, because why not? So, as a self-proclaimed foldable prop aficionado, the first thing I unboxed was Samsung's official silicone case, mainly for the kickstand. And right away I noticed something interesting. This accessory no longer comes with a flimsy front piece, but instead includes a screen protector, which is not bad, to be honest. But that's not the headline. The real story is what happened once I put it on. I paused for a moment, took the time to grasp what Samsung have created, despite holding it with this arguably janky silicone attachment, and realized this might just be the ultimate foldable, even compared to something like the N5. Because even with the rear back on, the Z Fold 7 feels incredibly thin and jaw-droppingly light. It's easily the most comfortable foldable I've ever had. It really feels like a regular phone that just happens to open into something more. The dream book-style foldable. Even the outside display feels tastefully narrower than the competition, which is something I've always been a fan of. Forgiving when operating it single-handedly, and vast when unfolded. One small but thoughtful detail I noticed is that Samsung finally moved the SIM tray to the right location, outside the rear casing, so I don't need to rip off the case just to swap a SIM. SIM slot aside, one thing I immediately noticed I was missing on the Z Fold, and something that shows up on the Oppo N5, is the alert slider. This is super handy because I don't need to think of going to the quick settings to go to vibrate or something like this. I just slide it down and I know I will not be disturbed with any sounds. I wish it was here. Once I set the phone up and took it home, something slowly started to creep in. While the Z Fold 7 embraces the flat design language of modern Samsung, it also makes the phone surprisingly difficult to open. Unlike the N5, which has subtly rounded sides that give your fingers something to work with, this one shuts completely flush. In a satisfactory fashion, I might add, but I want to focus on the word flush, because when I handed it to a few of my friends, the reaction was the same every time. How do you open this thing? You see, there's no cutout or something to help the fingers in the process, and part of that challenge comes down to the hinge, which combined with the new magnets makes this phone determined to keep itself sealed shut. Satisfying, yet a bit excessive when it comes to the pull. Thankfully, past the danger zone, the propping versatility remains the same as before. Whether it's closed or open, this phone is a marvel to look at. Perfectly even bezels, sharp edges, and a camera module that kinda lives in a different multiverse, but that's okay. At least it's not pretending to hide the inner display front-facing camera. What's not so okay, at least with me, is the continued absence of G2 rings on the back, something Android manufacturers still refuse to embrace in 2025. And my frustration isn't even related to wireless charging at this point. It's about snapping this phone onto mounts, stands, battery packs, just integrating it with the rest of my setup without relying on a specific case. So just like the Z Fold 6, both the inner and outer displays of the Z Fold 7 are sharp, vibrant, and most importantly, bright. Whether I'm outside or indoors, this thing is a pleasure to use. It's actually one of the complaints I had about the Oppo in my favorite tech episode, which I'll link at the end of this one. While the issue on the Oppo felt more like a software limitation rather than a hardware one, the Z Fold 7 handles bright environments far better. And the crease? It's still there, still visible if you're hunting for it, but just like before, it disappears from my awareness within minutes of actually using the phone, and then completely vanishes altogether. Fresh off the Oppo and with the SIM just swapped over, one of the first things I noticed was how much easier it is to keep the Z Fold 7 clean. I'm talking about the inner display here. Fingerprints are still a thing, of course, but they are far less stubborn. I'm not really sure if it's the oleophobic coating Samsung uses on their foldable screens, but whatever it is, it just works. Smudges white off effortlessly, and the surface doesn't hold on to grime the way Oppo's does. Remember how I mentioned the Z Fold 7 can be a bit tricky to open? Well, there's a perfect fix for that, and it comes in the form of the Grand Combo by Banks, which is this premium box. This is an all-in-one kit that includes everything you'd want to properly outfit the Z Fold 7. The Armor Grid Armor Air case with a matching front frame, and Banks' Glass Warrior HD screen protector. The premium feel continues inside, where the Armor Grid design stands out with its geometric pattern and subtle reflection accents around the hinge cover and the camera ring. The case itself is made with genuine DuPont Kevlar fiber, giving it an ultra-thin profile plus a magnetic hinge protection. Thanks to the included front frame, I can finally place the phone face down without hesitation, but even better here is the MagSafe support. This means I can snap the Z Fold 7 onto wireless chargers or even pop on my favorite magnetic grip and stand. So yeah, it's definitely a thoughtful bundle that you can check out in the first link in the description below. The inner display front-facing camera of the Z Fold 7 is no longer hidden under pixels. And as I expected, and I was hoping so, it looks much better than anything else before. In fact, I am comparing it to the S25 Ultra's front-facing camera right now in 4K 30 frames per second. So you can tell me what it looks like, and if you like the way it sounds like, by the way. Had I not spent time daily driving the N5 and instead upgrading directly from the Z Fold 6, I probably would have jumped out of my seat and celebrated what Samsung pulled off when it comes to the battery. Because on paper and throughout my first week with it, the Z Fold 7 performs about the same as its predecessor. It's a phone that can confidently last a full day with typical use and maybe whimper a little during heavier days. Now, the reason that's impressive is when you consider how thin it is compared to the Fold 6. Very admirable, no doubt, but not quite as admirable as what the competition is doing. The N5, for example, uses silicon carbon battery tech, packs a much larger capacity, and gives me something I didn't even know I needed: freedom from battery anxiety. I can top it up while taking a quick shower and not even think twice. It's easily a 2-day phone for me, no question. The Z Fold 7, on the other hand, stays loyal to its roots, and I don't mean that as a compliment. It's a phone that makes me glance at the percentage again, facing me to plan my next charge, knowing it still maxes out at 25 watts wired. Sure, there's the debate around battery chemistry and long-term health, but in practice, only one of those phones make me think about it. And for that price, I'd rather not have to. At this point, I'd really prefer not to be second-guessing the camera either. Samsung did bring over the 200 megapixel sensor from the Ultra, and while that sounds great on paper, I'm just not seeing the results worth bragging about. Maybe I've been spoiled by the Hasselblad hardware and tuning inside the Oppo, but the Z Fold 7's camera continues to underwhelm me. Low-light photos and videos are honestly pretty mediocre. The same goes for anything coming from these secondary lenses. I did side-by-side shots comparing it to the Oppo, and the Z Fold 7 just falls short in my opinion. I'm not talking about challenging conditions here, I'm talking about bright, sunny, middle-of-the-day shots. The Fold's images often carry a bluish tint, and more importantly, they lack the finer detail I can clearly see when zooming into photos taken on the Oppo. Other times the results are pure mess too. Perhaps a software update might fix this soon, hopefully. Okay, so I am at my usual spot testing the main sensor when it comes to video quality. The conditions are a little bit challenging on purpose because I'm backlit. I'm recording in 4K at 30 FPS, And hopefully it looks good and it sounds good, but you be the judge and let me know in the comments below. Going back to photos for a moment, this is Samsung after all, which means all my favorite One UI and Galaxy AI features are here. I can jump in, tweak things exactly how I like them, and even strip away what I don't need without hesitation. Galaxy AI is super reliable, so is customization options like the ability to tweak my camera shortcuts on the fly. If you are into that kind of control, by the way, you can check out my Get the Most Out of the Galaxy S25 Ultra episode, which I'll link below. It's packed with tips and tricks that apply to the Z Fold too. Speaking of the S25 Ultra, the Z Fold 7 quietly says goodbye to the S Pen support. And while that might frustrate some people, personally, I'm okay with it. On a device this thin, I'd never want to slap a case bulky enough to hold an S Pen. And to be honest, I've never felt really comfortable writing on this softer, more flexible inner display anyway. Still, I get that for some folks this could be a deal breaker. What isn't missing, however, here is DeX, which just like on the Ultra is here to stay and offer full desktop support even when plugged in to a fully fledged desk setup. So I just tried plugging in the Z Fold to this desk setup, which is a relatively new one, and things appear to be working just fine with a few little exceptions that I want to point out. Now, first of all, it's not running in 4K. This is a 4K display, but it's running at 1080. And even if I go to Good Lock to enable DeX in 4K, it doesn't work. I'm not sure if it needs to be updated. The phone becomes sluggish and it still runs at 1080p. So I turn it off for optimal performance. Other than that, everything else here in this setup works perfectly. For example, if I go to YouTube and play a video, the audio is coming from the speakers themselves, and I can control it. So if I want to turn it down or turn it up, no problem. Of course, the keyboard and the mouse work flawlessly as well. The only thing to consider here is the camera, because even though I have an external camera plugged in, I cannot rely on it. I need to use the Z Fold front-facing camera, and if the software allows it, perhaps maybe switch to the rear module like this. So yeah, DeX is here and it's working. It just needs to be in 4K. So the results here are no surprise, to be honest. With its new internals, this phone zips through just about anything I throw at it. Not once did I feel a hesitation or doubt while using it. One UI feels just as refined on the cover screen as it does on the inside, where things can get wild enough to run multiple apps at once without breaking a sweat. Sure, it doesn't offer the full-screen multitasking experience the Oppo nails, but it makes up for it with layers of customizability right out of the box. And that's without even diving into Good Lock. I find the inner display ideal for reading books and documents, researching while writing, and of course having fun like watching movies and playing games. That said, I did notice a tendency for it to heat up, especially during longer camera sessions. It's not alarming, but definitely something that stood out to me. Hopefully Samsung can dial that in with a future update. Now, if this phone had launched 2 years ago, right alongside the Honor Magics of the world, I probably would have justified the price, no problem. Maybe even with the current camera and battery choice. But this is 2025. And the competition isn't just fierce, it's evolved. Yes, the Z Fold 7 is the best Samsung foldable to date, and yes, it's absolutely amazing in many ways. But it honestly has to be. Because when the competition is this good, offering the bare minimum outside the thinness, especially at this price, just isn't enough. If Samsung had kept the old price, maybe throw in some proper accessories or pushed further on battery and camera, maybe I'd be jumping out of my seat. But as it stands, I'd only recommend it if you can grab it as part of a really good deal. In that case, it's a fantastic phone. Otherwise, it's close, but not quite there. If you enjoyed this video, then you should definitely check out my Oppo Find N5 episode right here. Like and subscribe to the channel as well as my newsletter, and as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. This is E, over and out.